Exactly. I do have a horror story about that,
Right.
and we're
Okay, I think it's time for horror stories. So
yeah,
let's get the
yeah.
juicy ones.
So, we'll go with what's relevant first.
Mm.
What uh,
Mm.
um about alts and like alt play. Uh,
Mm.
uh, I was in a guild in the Old Republic. I won't name them. Um, I would love to, but we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole tonight.
Mm.
Cause I'm a petty bitch. But they were very strict. Um, they didn't like furries, and when
Mm.
they found out I was a furry, they all hell broke loose. It was fantastic. Um, but about the alt play first. We'll get to that part. The alt play first. I had a friend who was the guild leader of the guild I was a part of was also an officer in another guild where I
Mm.
had friends. And I had a friend in that guild. I think I might have been a part of it at the time too. I don't remember. I changed guilds a lot within our community because we had several guilds.
Mm.
Um, but my friend's character was supposed to be in the like the med bay or the hospital because their
Mm.
character got hurt during an event and they forced people to do like medical recovery downtime. It was really dumb and obnoxious and I hated it. I absolutely hated it.
Right.
But my friend was raiding. She was
Uh.
doing her weekly raids and the officer sends her a tell and goes, "Oh, I hope you're not there in character because you're supposed to be in the hospital." And my friend's just like, "I'm in the fucking tentacle monster boss fight. What do you want from me? How is
Right.
this in character?" Like,
Right. Right.
cause God, I forget the name of the raid. It's like other side of the galaxy or something like that.
Right.
Uh, I'm just pulling it up real fast because I mean the whole thing is just hilarious. Terror from Beyond.
Mm.
It was called the Terror from Beyond, and it was a giant like tentacle hentai monster boss fight. It was ridiculous. Like the whole dungeon was like that. There was like space vagina, black holes, and the the entire fight was like just somebody having some sexual frustrations.
Right. Right.
Anyways, um,
Not awkward at all. Anyway.
so
Mm.
this officer like gives her like this whole spiel about how she should be in the like medical hospital role playing blah blah blah. And she's like, I'm raiding, I'm not
Right.
role playing. Like, go away, leave me alone. And he did that like to everybody. It was ridiculous. At one point I was role playing my characters in the hospital after an event because my character was always getting hurt. And
Mm.
we were role playing, and I was role playing with a friend who was just hanging out with me in character. And
Mm.
so like my character was supposed to be like laying in the bed, and his character was supposed to be sitting on the edge of the bed. But there's not a
Right.
good like character model animation for that, so both characters are just sitting on top of the bed.
Right. Right.
And then he walks into the room because it's a public zone, but
Mm.
everything's has multiple instances, so we just picked the least populated instance of that area.
Mm.
And he walks in and then sees the character models both sitting there and just assumes that the characters are in bed with each other and starts just like going off on them. And we're just
Right.
like,
Right.
wait a second, hold on. You're not even letting us describe the scenario for you.
Right.
Why are you flipping out on us? And he's just like, oh, well, you should have. And it's just like, we didn't have a chance. You just immediately jumped on it. And it's just
Right.
like,
Right.
oh, well, that's your problem because, and it was the same guy.
Right. Right.
and he's a guild leader. He's an officer. He's a leader of the overall community. It was just he controlled the entire community with an iron fist.
Right, right.
And that's not cool.
Right, right. That's not what other people are kind of around for. Like, it's great, it's great if you can kind of organize things and whatnot, but like, yeah, there's a point where organization becomes kind of obnoxious, ham-fisted control, and that's not.
Right, exactly. And so he was the leader of the Jedi Guild that I was a part of.
Mm.
And I joined and left that guild several times. The first time I left them with my okay, so I'm going to talk about my cat girl. I just started at the beginning of the cat girl legacy.
Mm-hmm.
So when I made my Cathar, I wasn't planning on making her a Jedi or anything like that. She was originally non-force sensitive, but eventually I made her one. But she had 2 older brothers, and we were all players. And like it was like day 2 of us of making the characters. We were just hanging out by the guild because we all had other characters in the guild, so we knew the people in it. So we all just put our characters in that guild because that's where we were comfortable. And the oldest brother, and we were just messing around. Like we weren't super in character. We weren't doing any heavy story writing or anything like that. And
right.
the oldest brother just made this joke of pulling out a laser pointer, just like dances a laser point, at my character's feet. So,
right.
being cats, she chased the laser pointer.
Right.
I mean, we're just messing around, just having fun.
Right.
And I noticed that there was something happening in the chat at that time, but I didn't know it involved me. What ended up happening was somebody else in the community, in one of our community chat channels, started throwing a fit because we were being furries.
Oh,
basically.
My God. Right.
And like accusing us of like bestiality and immoral behavior and this and the other. I wish I saved the chat logs, but again, I didn't know it was directed at me. I thought they were talking about somebody else because bestiality, that can't be about me. Like what?
Right.
Why would somebody be accusing me of bestiality? That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, surprise.
I know. It's crazy. And eventually it got to the point where one of my really good friends that wasn't even involved in anything. Now, mind you, I didn't interact with this person on this character. I knew them on one of my other characters. But my character and their character at that time had not interacted with each other at all. I hadn't even talked to her that week. And all of a sudden she's just blasting me in the community chat. It's just like mind blown. I don't know what's happening.
Right.
And then I see one of my other really good friends just smash her in the chat, just being apparently like they had some kind of in-character relationship between their characters. And he just blasts her for being like a prostitute or something. And just like, oh yeah, those big words, like her character was a prostitute.
Right, yeah.
I should specify that. But he just blasts her about like her like character's prostitution, this, that, the other, and she logs off in a huff, and we never saw her again.
Right.
And like, so say like 20 minutes after all that happened, because I'm watching the chat and I'm just really confused. I'm like, what's happening? I don't understand. Who's this beast? Who's doing bestiality? I'm really confused.
Right.
So like 20 minutes later, the guild leader sends me a tell. He's just like, so are you guys like playing with a laser pointer with your characters? And we're like, yeah. It's just like, oh, okay. Did you like talk to this person like, and I'm like, no. And they're like, oh, okay. Is there a reason why they'd be mad at you? And I'm like, who? What?
Right.
No. What? And then it just went away. And I'm just like, what the fuck was that about?
Right.
And then, like 6 months later, I was talking to my friend that blasted that person in the chat, and we were talking in voice chat, and I was just like, oh yeah, I wonder what happened to XYZ. I had a lot of fun hanging out with them on my other character, and they're like, oh, do you not? They were talking shit about you, right? And I'm like,
what? Right.
And then it all clicked. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. It was just, but that's like the weird shit that would happen in that community. Like people would call each other out in public chats. Then it would like get taken care of, but there was already a public display. Like it a lot of times it wouldn't get addressed.
Right.
And like I'd appreciate that things got taken care of discreetly, but there was still a public incident that should have been addressed by somebody.
Right.
Just be like, yeah, it's taken care of, don't worry about it. That no one would ever say anything like that. It would just disappear.
Right.
Until someone brings out screen caps, and then they get yelled at for bringing it up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like you definitely don't want to kind of like make an example, like I said, but like you definitely want to make it look like like make it the appearance of like we're handling. If there's a problem, we are handling it.
Right.
We are doing what we can in order to basically handle the problem. Because you don't want to handle it and then like everybody to feel like nothing happened, especially like for on a professional level. Like you don't want people to, again, the broken windows thing. Oh, well, you have all these people misbehaving, and obviously, the developers are doing nothing to address the issue. Even if you are, but so you want to kind of make it look like you're doing something, but you don't necessarily want to single out individual people and say, oh, we're punishing this person for doing this, for this, that, and the other. You want to say there was a post about somebody calling somebody a Nazi. This is inappropriate for our community, and we have taken care of it. And, you're going to get people going, oh, who was it? Oh, but but the reality is that if people kind of want to share the information, they can, but you to make an official.
Right.
You want to make an official, say, okay, yeah, oh, we banned this person, so make a bunch of assumptions about where our allegiances are.
Yeah, like you can address it without calling the person out or by name.
Right.
But that's usually the best way to handle things, in my opinion, when it's something that people are becoming aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's important to go, yeah, this thing's been X, Y, and Z issues have been happening with some of our members. We're taking care of it. Don't worry, it's being taken care of. We've had to do that a couple times with the Makote group with mixed results. Some people freak out more than others, but anyways, speaking of making examples of people, let me tell you another story. Before my Makote group was a free company, we were originally just a link shell, which is like a private chat room in 14. Me and a couple of other people, we went through a couple of FCs just trying to find a place to hang out with cool people. And we found this one group, I won't name it, I promise, but I think I was talking to you when I was in that FC. So the FC leader would just kind of start yelling at people in FC chat.
Right. Okay, I remember this one. Yeah. Yeah, and basically, like, just kind of like one of your first days in the FC, you're saying like they just kind of like completely dressed down this person in public chat, and it really left a bad taste in your mouth because you're like, is this how things go?
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think I was only in the FC for like a week, wasn't
Mm,
it?
I think so.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's what I was gonna ask you. It's just like if you can remember how long I remember. I can't remember how long I complained about it, but basically, the FC leader, a bunch of FC members went to do like fucking like Ramu or something, some rating content, some medium tier rating content. I don't remember exactly what they were running,
Right, right.
but one of the guys just kept standing in AoEs and kept getting
Mm,
hit and wasn't doing mechanics. And they get out of it, and she just lights him up in chat, calling him an effing moron. Why am I censoring myself? It's my chat. Anyways,
right,
calling him a moron, an idiot, a
right,
dumbass. Every
right, right,
like everything in the book because he couldn't do mechanics.
right,
And
right.
it was just such of an overreaction. It was ridiculous. And she went on for
Yeah,
hours.
geez. I mean, like, that's the thing though, is like, like that sort of thing does not help. Like, like nobody's like, oh shoot, yeah, I guess I should pay attention to mechanics now. Like, like either they don't understand the mechanics, you need to explain to them, or they don't care, and you need to either kind of adjust to that, or like
Get rid of him.
with them and find somebody else that does care about following mechanics if that's important.
Right.
It's it's like, yeah, like being a toxic, being toxic like that does not help.
It was ridiculous. And the entire time I'm just like I'm talking to my tribe members.
Right,
I'm just like this 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 isn't okay, right? Like I'm
mm,
not crazy, right? Like
right, right,
this is
right,
happening, right?
right. This is kind of BS, right?
Yeah, and eventually I just got to the point where I just left. And I usually will reach out to the FC leader or the guild leader when I'm leaving a group. I'm like, "Hey, it's just not working out. I'm just going to go.
Right.
Wish you the best." I didn't even do that. I was just like,
You're like,
I'm done
I'm
here.
out.
I am out.
Right, right.
And
Nah, I can't blame you. I mean, that just that sort of thing just kind of, yeah, like it'll tell, like, again, like, that's one of the things, like, it's kind of, like, the quote from the, Machiavelli's The Prince. It's, is it better to be feared or loved? It's like, like there, like, yeah, sure, you can get people to fear you, but like that isn't necessarily the best environment for, it isn't necessarily the best environment for people.
right, right. And I mean, we could break down into that quote like for hours because it's
Right,
you can get really deep into that. I've done it before, but
right.
maybe
I mean,
another podcast.
right. I mean, it works as a philosophy, to some extent, but the flip side of that is like, yeah, I it, and again, like, I think maybe like, the interesting thing that would be discussed, on the podcast would be like, like types of communities and cultures for groups like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, if you want people that, like follow orders, and do exactly what they're told, like that's one thing. But you need to kind of make that clear up front. Like most people aren't playing this game so they can be bossed around, for fun.
Right.
Like they don't necessarily want to, like, lose their autonomy, or have to deal with, you know kind of deal with that kind of, like, levels of toxicity. They want to be protected from that. They don't want that feeling of, helplessness or whatnot.
Right. And speaking of that, no, I'm saving for last. Um,
Hey, that's the name you will mention.
that's the name we. That's the name I'll mention. Oh shit! I didn't mean to do that. Oh well, too late.
Right, right.
We're doing this. Okay, so there's one more guild that I wanted to get to before we talk about.
Mm.
Um, there's another guild that I joined in 14 when my group moved from Sargatanas to Malboro.
Mm.
We joined a group because one of our members had already moved to Malboro, and that's why we chose
Mm.
Malboro. And he
Mm.
had joined this group, and he said it was a good group and fun and blah blah blah. He was a liar.
Okay.
Uh, they were so the recruitment strategy for this group was a shotgun, like absolute shotgun. The FC
Mm.
leader would just he would just do a search command in the game because that's something you can do to search up player names. I guess you can do that in
Right.
most games. Anyways, um, and he would just start inviting people that weren't in an FC just blindly.
Mm.
No, wouldn't speak to them. Just complete blind invites.
Mm.
Now that's something I hate. I hate blind invites. They are like I hate them as a
Right.
behavior.
Right, right. This is kind of one of those things where it's, like it's an attempt to basically get people to basically it's an attempt at numbers, quantity over quality, and it's kind of a numbers game. Like, you shoot out. I've seen people do this, on Final Fantasy, also World of Warcraft. Back when I
Mm,
played, they will just invite anybody that's not in a guild, just to kind of get people in there, kind of with the hopes of that, if they invite enough people, they'll basically, something will stick.
right, right. And but the issue is that he'd shotgun recruit, but not have any management for members.
Right.
He would there was the leader, and he had two main officers, and then maybe some sub officers after that. Like the this system made no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that he made officers, out of all of them, only one of them really did management. The
Mm.
rest of them were just friends.
Right.
They were just his friends.
Right.
Um, and the focus that the leader had, like the focus of the group for him, this drives me crazy, was the Grand Company standing leaderboard on the lodestone.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and the more people you have, basically, because that's just a cumulative thing.
Right.
Right.
So, how do I explain this to people that don't know 14?
Well, the Grand Company is kind of like, a big organization that every player belongs to one of three, and then, the FC, the guilds, the free companies can be aligned to one, and so everything you do in the guild can basically earn you points toward that, the Grand Companies. And so basically the free companies are then organized by, which members have done the most activity, and it's basically it's essentially a measure of like raw activity, because a lot of things you can
Yes,
do in the
Jara.
game contributes to it.
Jara's asking if a Grand Company is like a faction. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of a
Um,
faction. I mean, I mean, in theory, they're all allied, and the only time it really matters in game mechanics is basically for PvP, where the one place where they compete. But
and even then, that doesn't matter because you can queue
right,
up as any of them.
right,
Um,
right.
and so on the uh game on 14's community website, it's called the Lodestone.
Mm,
There's a little tab on the side of the site that will show which guilds or which free companies had the most activity for the week
mm,
for the grand companies. And that was the FC leader's main focus was to be number one on that leaderboard. That's all he cared about for the free company. So for something that you don't get anything for it.
it's purely bragging rights, yeah. But having a whole lot of warm body stuff is basically the way to. And I mean, it's basically it's kind of like, it's essentially achieving, like he's probably looking at, he wants the highest score, he wants the most points, but that doesn't necessarily, like that basically comes at the cost of actually having, um, the things that matter essentially.
Right, right. So with all of that, um, there was no structure. There's no real structure outside of the officers that were in the free company that didn't really do anything except for one of them, and like, yeah, and there's no standards of behavior. So it was just like the Wild West in that guild. Like you could say or do whatever you wanted. If someone got offended, then it was usually their problem.
Mm,
Which there was a lot of offensive things happening in that group.
right.
And it was super misogynistic.
Oh, I think I remember you telling.
So most of my group that moved from Circuit Tennis to my world, we're all friends outside. Most of them are my mods. Or most of my mods are from that group. There's Vella's from that group as well. If anyone knows Vela from hanging out in the stream. So most of that group were women. And most of the time when I'm playing MMOs, I usually am female presenting in games. It's just hi. I there's nothing else I can say to that. It's just hi. It's me. So like I generally wouldn't just disclose that I was male because I didn't give a shit because whatever. It's whatever.
Right.
And basically if you were female presenting in that guild, you could not become an officer in the group. Even if you were stepping up to the plate to handle things, you could not get any form of recognition for your work. I donated like 5 million gil to the FC so that they could buy their mansion. And I personally got no recognition for it whatsoever.
Lovely.
Yeah. And I think it was the 5 mil that we needed to actually buy the house. Like we bought the plot.
Right.
And then the FC was like, "Oh shit, we can't buy the house because the." And I'm like,
right.
I got this, and then got like no recognition for the personal investment. I remember at one point, a bunch of guys in the because in-game marriage was coming out as a system in the game in a upcoming patch, and a bunch of the guys in the guild in the FC were like arguing over who was going to marry my character.
Right. And without your character's consent, right?
Right. Like I had nothing to do with it. I didn't prompt it. I didn't want it. I'm just like, no, stop it. Like I expressed explicitly, I'm not okay with this joke. Stop it.
Right.
And they're just like,
Right.
They were just being disgusting human beings.
Right.
And so I went to one of the officers I was friends with, and he's just like, "Oh shit, I didn't know that was going on," even though he was there in the chat. Like he just cared about just hanging out. He didn't care about like thinking about administrative care.
Right.
So
this was officially not his job.
Right. Basically, even though he was an officer, yeah.
Right.
So like, it was just a systemic failure on all levels of the guild because the guild leader wasn't leading by example. He wasn't establishing any expectations. He wasn't establishing any standards in the group because all he cared about was that leaderboard standing.
Right. And if people laughed, well, he just ran them in by other people, and people accept because that's what you do. You there's some gameplay benefit to being in a free company if they run buffs and whatnot.
Right, exactly. So people in general didn't care, and we would call him out a lot. We would get him in voice chat. We would yell at him. We did everything in our power as members to get his attention, to get him to start fixing things. And eventually he just said, I give up, and gave leadership to someone else and quit the game. Because he just... yeah. He was also one of those guys that wanted us to go raiding. He wanted to get into the Coils of Bahamut. But he would also... So he would main tank, and then he'd also complain about how bored he was tanking, and then would miss mechanics. And then would just kind of shrug it off like, oh, it's not my fault. Like, bitch, please.
Right. How lovely.
yeah. It just... there's nothing redeeming about that guy as a leader. It was very upsetting.
Right.
So, speaking of really bad leaders... Here, let me get you their lodestone URL. Let me... So, probably the most traumatic horror story that I have is a guild that an FC I was a part of in 14 called.
Which you looked up recently, and you said they no longer. It looked like most of them no longer played because they hadn't gone over the old level cap. So they probably were in the...
It doesn't look like any of them play anymore, which I'm not surprised. But so they're called. Let me say that again. They're called the on the Maddiest server. Okay. Anyways, I'm an awful human being. I apologize. Where do I begin with this group? I don't even know. So, the Emberlight Tavern was an RP group that was extremely exclusive on who they allowed in. Which I generally see as a relatively fine... Like, I never see that as a bad thing overall if you're just very selective on who joins your group. But I've also come to realize that the reason why they were so exclusive is because they wanted I'm sorry. Okay. I thought I just lost my broadcast for a second.
No.
They were specifically looking for people that they could control. People that wouldn't balk at their system, and people that didn't have a lot of friends outside. Like, it was really, really gross. Because basically, if you joined the group, then they would dictate basically how you're going to RP your character. They would dictate what role your character is going to play in the group. And if you had friends outside the group, they would go out of their way to basically like be a killer type player and ostracize you from your friends so that you had to rely on the group for social interaction. This is the horror story I was referring to before.
Right.
And like, I lost friends while I was in that group, and friends I still haven't reconnected with because I don't really play the character that was in that group anymore. That was the only way I could get that taint away from me was to make a new character and just get away from it and just move on.
Right.
The worst part was that I had friends in the group, and I would communicate with them out of characterly and be like, hey, our characters are really cute together. It'd be kind of fun if they had like this kind of my character has like a crush on your character dynamic and your character doesn't really notice it. Like that could be really fun. And they're like, yeah, sure, that's a lot of fun. And so we start playing it up for a couple of weeks, I guess. And then all of a sudden, I get a tell from the FC leader telling me that my RP is making the other person uncomfortable, and that I shouldn't mess with them anymore because they're getting really uncomfortable. So that immediately makes me hesitant to reach out to that person anymore or to RP with that person anymore.
Right.
And so then I just kind of I and my character wasn't a good fit for the group to start with because they were supposed to be like this underground shady organization that like ran a bar as a front.
Oh God, one of those.
Yeah. And my character was a bard. She was actually a performer, a mage that would
Right.
she'd use magic, like illusion magic, for her shows.
Right. Right.
But she's a lawful good character. Like
Right. Right. I think
she,
you're very much a cinnamon bun, innocent type, and
right,
which I
right,
mean could be interesting in that type of group, being kind of the hapless thing. But like you said, like they wanted that control. Um, they wanted to basically control your character, and like I think I remember you telling me about one way. No, you're the assassin of the group now.
right, right. I was
And like,
supposed.
you'd roll terrible, and you'd be like, okay, let's roll with this, and they'd be like, you can re-roll that, and
Right. Oh yeah, that's the other thing that they would get on me on is that I would do personal rolls with my personal dice roller, just to make decisions on just random stuff. Because at the time, I had a lot of fun just playing with luck and RNG and just having fun with it. And
right,
so like,
a little bit of unpredictability, kind of adding to the interest of
right,
the
right.
the story and whatnot. Yeah, yeah.
And if I was doing something that like my character wasn't inherently good at, like assassinating people, I would do a lot of rolling for that because I'm like, she shouldn't be good at this. She shouldn't be
Right,
good
right,
at this. So I'm going to leave it up to chance. And most of the times I rolled really low on it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
right, right.
She'd mess up, and then out of characterly, the FC leader and the officer would be like, you need to, like, do you enjoy your character failing? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, how dare you?
Right, right, right. How dare you enjoy that?
And it's just like, oh, I'm sorry. Am I messing up your story that you're writing out? Oh, I'm sorry that I'm role playing my
Right, right,
character.
right. Sorry that I'm not, not telling the story that you want, but rather, trying to tell a collaborative story.
Right, right. And like that's the other things that they had this whole like story set up. They had another player that played the villain for the story outside of the group, and oh, you better watch out for him when you're that. That's the other thing. Like they wouldn't let you like leave the tavern in character. Like if you went out into Uda, there's always the threat of the villain character being out there in
Hmm.
character, and like you could abduct your character in character if you were in character. In
Mm.
character. Um, so like there's always
In
this
here.
looming threat about your RP getting derailed.
Right, right. Which,
Like
kind of, yeah, like you said, kind of that subtle, like, oh no, you can't play with your friends anymore because someone might log on the bad guy and go harass you.
right, right. It was really ridiculous. And it was just ridiculous. Like all the rules that they would have that made no fucking sense. Oh, and that's the other thing. Like at the time, my cat girl like had a boyfriend character,
Mm,
and we'd hang out in my FC room where
mm,
we we would just have conversations in character. That was
right,
it because we had an explicit rule that everyone knew that these characters weren't going to do lewd
right,
scenes.
right. But of course.
And then and so basically and like we had like a window every 2 days, like where we would both be available to do a scene for a couple hours.
Mm.
And then I'd leave the scene, and then I'd come hang out at the tavern. And so the FC leader like starts hounding me like, oh well, we miss having you around, and we miss RPing with you because you're always in your FC room with the boyfriend character. And it's just like, I RP with you every day. Like,
Right.
just because I'm giving someone else some time of day
Right.
doesn't mean I love you any less.
Mm. Right.
And eventually get to the point where she broke my friendship with with the other person. Like
Because
she
you
just
weren't role playing enough.
yeah, because I had someone else I was giving attention to.
Right.
And that friendship, I mean, we're like neutral with each other now. Like there's no hard feelings, but we don't talk anymore.
Right.
And it's just it like that was the point that broke me with the group, because I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
Mm.
I should also mention that the people from the Emberlight were from the same community in the Old Republic that I was a part of.